We are backstage at Pointfest, and Kevin from Candlebox joined. How are you, sir? Great to see you, man. Great to see you. So there is so much to talk about with you, and had the great fortune of being to chat with you a few weeks ago. But there's some things that I wanted to talk that we talked about then that I'd like to talk about again today. 25th anniversary of the Candlebox debut. Isn't that an amazing thing at this point? How do you, as the guy that did it and was the key element in this, how do you look back and see the staying power of this thing? Because it's still a very relevant record.
I know, it's kind of crazy. I don't know, man. I wake up every day and I pinch myself that I've been fortunate enough to have this career. You know, I mean, it's a wild thing to turn 49 years old and know that I've been doing this for 25 years and that people still listen to the record, and you know, the royalty check comes in every April and every October, and you're just like, wow, this is crazy that this record still sells like it does. You know, I mean, I'm lucky, one of the bands that was able to make money off of albums. You know, so I don't know. It's paid my rent for a long time. I'm very happy about that.
Absolutely. So now let's go back a little bit to the beginning of this ride for you. I would assume at that particular time in Seattle, Washington, there was a feeding frenzy for bands because that first tier had already signed and blown up and all that sort of thing. How did the courting of Candlebox happen, and how did you settle on Maverick with Madonna?
Well, that's an interesting story. Our bass player wasn't 21 when we started the band, so you weren't able to play in the clubs in Seattle. You had to be 21 in order to play in a bar. So we played a lot of like the all-ages festivals or shows around town, or you know, friends' house parties, something like that. So when he did turn 21, June of '92, we were invited to play a showcase last minute for BMI. In the city. They asked us to go on at 7 o'clock. Doors were at 6:30. They're like, you got 20 minutes to impress whoever's here. And back then in Seattle, of course, like you said, everybody was looking for another band. Nobody really knew about us because we weren't on the radar yet, other than the friends and family and fans that had found us at other shows. So that really kind of blew it open for us. We were seen by somebody from EMI. And she flew us down to LA. We played in Los Angeles at the Club Lingerie in October of '92. Guy Osiris stumbled into that show, who of course now manages Madonna, and everybody's got a huge U2. He was the A&R guy. He was an intern at the age of 20 and took us to the label and said, this is the band I want to sign. They flew to Seattle, saw us play a show in Seattle, and that was it. And that was the fall of '92, and we signed that Christmas and made the record in the spring, and it came out July 20th of 1993, so pretty quick.
Unbelievable. That is such a, I mean, was there any time, I mean, I'm sure that there was a lot of enjoyment in that time, obviously, you know, but I mean, when you guys were, when that was sort of happening, and maybe even before the label started knocking, I mean, were you thinking with the other bands around you popping, why can't we do it? I mean, these are our neighbors. Why can't we be the next one to go? Was
Sure.
that at all in the thought process?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, look, we knew that, you know, being in the right place at the right time was going to be very beneficial to us. But we were such a different type of band, more blues-based rock and roll band, and of course about 5 and 6 years in age younger than the guys in Alice and Soundgarden and whatnot. So we didn't have that kind of history of playing with Green River or playing in other bands around the city. We kind of fell together as a band. The only person in the band I knew when we started was the drummer. The bass player went to high school with me, but he was in Europe doing a foreign exchange program. So I didn't know him, and the guitar player Pete was introduced to us by Kelly Gray, who was in a band with Scott way back when. So we were kind of a happy accident, if you will. But of course we thought, you know, we had something special musically. We had something that was different, and there weren't a lot of bands that were playing the kind of blues-based rock we were in the city. And a little bit more of arena rock kind of a sound for us. So, and I guess the closest thing to what we were doing would be Pearl Jam in that kind of, you know, big, long, drawn-out songs, ballads, and stuff like that. So we knew there was a chance, but we were playing with 7 other bands at the time, all of which we thought were way better than us: Sweetwater, Easy, the Marvelous Three, all these other bands that we thought were going to be way bigger than us. And then, of course, Green Apple Quickstep was another one that Maverick was courting at the same time as us. So we really didn't know if it was going to break. We had a feeling that we had something different, like I said, but we weren't sure. We didn't quit our day jobs. I'll tell you that much.
Sure.
At first.
What was your last job before being a rock and roll star?
I was selling shoes.
Okay.
I was selling shoes with Susan Silver, who managed Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. I worked at this store called Fluvog in Seattle, and that's how I met Chris and Andy and Lane and all those guys from those bands that come in looking for their flyers for the shows that Susan would make up. So I was fortunate enough to get to know a lot of those musicians early on, and they were all very gracious and hey man, do your thing, don't quit. Somebody's going to find it,
Because there were some haters. Yeah. I mean, there were definitely some haters when you guys started, but it seems like maybe some of those band guys were not those haters. Were the band guys the supportive ones? Who were the ones that were chirping the negative things in the background?
I think it was all the fans of the bands like Alice and Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana and stuff like that. Those guys were all super cool. I mean, I met Dave Grohl when he first came to Seattle to try out for Nirvana. I never met Kurt. Chris lived right behind me in Seattle. I knew him pretty well. They were all. That was the thing about the community there. Musically, it was always supportive of one another. There was never a negative said about any of the bands from a band member. But the fans, haters are going to hate. Courtney Love hated us, coattail rioters and this and that, and so we did a cover of the Rocket magazine dressed up like her, the boys with the most cake, I think the real musicians there and the real bands that were from that era, in that area as well, just wanted to see us do well.
Excluding yourself, and I think about this all the time. This is like one of the nerd musical things that I talk to my other friends about. If you had to pick in that time period of the 90s, your favorite voice, your very favorite.
Andy Wood. Yeah.
Above everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, Chris was amazing. Eddie's amazing. Lane was amazing. But Andy had that just Freddie Mercury quality about how he approached songs. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't the best singer, but he just had a way of delivering songs that spoke to me. And I miss him. I wrote Far Behind for him when he passed. So Andy was that magical voice for me in that city, and I've I'm sure I've stolen a lot of his phrasings and vocal styles just because he was such an inspiration. He had a band called Malfunction, which is to this day still my favorite band from Seattle.
Wow. I think what was so amazing to me to watch some of those clips of him is the showman that he was, like you were saying, because there was a lot of morose cats at that time, you know what I mean? Looking at sneakers. He was not that one, and I thought that was one of the things that definitely differentiated him from some of those other singers at that particular time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first time I met him, he walked into Fluvog wearing a fur jacket, a Lakers jersey, crazy spandex pants, and those Reebok pumps, with the tongue sticking out, and these star glasses in the middle of summer.
Right.
That was who he was, and he put on a show, man. That guy was, he'd be playing the Vogue Theater, which is as big as this room, and say, can you see me in the balcony? When there's no balcony. Right. That was his thing. He always wanted to be a rock star, and he lived it and breathed it 100%.
Yeah, and it just looks like the kind of guy that that's not going to be a guy that's working at the grocery store. That guy was born to be the rock star.
That's exactly what he was born to do.
Man, it's such a pleasure to have you here as you celebrate the 25th anniversary. I think I told you this when we spoke last. The station is celebrating our 25th anniversary as well, and we're incredibly proud to be around it. And to be very honest with you, Kevin, I mean, through the whole ride, Cover Me, you, Far Behind have been a big part of that, Simple Lessons and all that. So, we just thank you for providing great music that we can continue to play.
My pleasure, man. Thank you very much.
Kevin,
congratulations.
Thank you very much, man.
You had it.
All right.